Ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't mind if you were right on top, because see, I'm right on top, and I wouldn't mind if they could be right on top, even if you have to zoom a little bit to be as close to this thing as I am, for the viewer, okay? So we've drawn our lines, and carving is always drawing lines and then carving to those lines. So now we're going to outline. This is called outlining. You have a line, and you outline. Now the trick about outlining, 2 or 3 things to keep in mind. The knife has to be perpendicular to the wood, perpendicular to the wood. So you're always having to adjust as the wood turns in your hand. You want the knife perpendicular to the surface of the wood. So since the surface of the wood isn't perfectly flat, you have to keep changing. But I always just hold the knife like this pretty much, and that way as I turn the wood, the knife is perpendicular to it. Also, another thing you want to keep in mind as you're outlining is you don't want to have that knife slip. For instance, if I was doing it right here, let's say, and I was trying to outline, I could slip and cut down here. So you're always careful to brace. I have fingers on the wood bracing. I'm holding the knife carefully. It's a good sharp knife. You want a sharp knife to do any kind of carving. Sharper the better. This knife right now is very sharp. I can take tiny little slivers off without much effort. This is basswood, and it's very good basswood. It happens to be about as, I don't know how basswood could be any better than this wood right here. It's beautiful. You can get basswood that's denser, and sometimes you can get it that's too soft, but this is just perfect. Try to carve cleanly, which means you don't want a bunch of slivers, don't want any slivers, you want it nice and clean. I'm going to just undercut. Now it's called undercutting. I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to undercut that line that I put in, the outline that I put in. I'm undercutting on the inside of the eye circle. You could undercut the outside of the eye circle by going on this side, but I don't want to do that right now. I want to undercut the inside of the eye circle. You're aware of the grain, the direction that the grain is moving, or not moving, excuse me, the direction that the grain is going. Of course, the grain stays constant in the wood. If it's a nice piece of wood without knots, the grain is straight and runs down through the piece. You've laid the piece, when you cut it out with your bandsaw, you laid it on straight. Here's a little cleanup I can do, and here's a little cleanup I can do right here. I don't want anything like that. I want my pieces just as free from, I want them perfectly carved if I can. You can do a little cleanup. They don't have to be perfectly carved the first second that you carve them. You can go back and clean them up with a sharp knife. Now here's a little ding in the wood where when I was carving it, I didn't pay very careful attention to the grain. I got a little ding, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. The actual snapping turtle shell doesn't look like this. This is kind of stylized, and the actual turtle shell is very rough looking, knobby and rough, little projections everywhere, and it's hard to define exactly what it is, and I think it'd be almost impossible to carve it, especially with a knife. So this is a stylized version of a snapping turtle shell. So there you are. I just cleaned up some things that I noticed that just didn't look good. They didn't look clean, smooth. And with a sharp knife and a steady hand and good eyes and good light, good lighting, you can do this. But I'll tell you the truth, you have to have all those 4 things. You have to have a sharp knife, have to have a steady hand, which you can have by bracing your hand, like I do. You have to have good lighting so that you can see. So I have a light up here, an aught light, and I have a fluorescent light. And then you also need good eyes. And right now I'm wearing $10 glasses from Walmart. And they work fine. In fact, I'm probably going to get another pair. The first time I tried them, but they work great. And they come in different magnifications. I may get a stronger magnification here before long. So there, that shell's pretty cleaned up. I like it. So now we'll go back to the face where we were working.